It's scientific afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another MC Science session where today we will be looking at Ecology Part 2, Week 1. With this, our we're going to delve into sampling ecosystems and how do scientists study nature. So, over the previous 6 weeks of work that we have done, we discovered how ecosystems work, and now we're going to become real scientists and imagine someone asking you how many daisies grow in Central Park, or how many insects live in this woodland. Or it could even be like, has biodiversity increased in the last year? So the question would be as well, how would you answer that? Would you count every insect, every blade of grass? Probably not. And today you'll discover how real ecologists solve this problem. So what we will now look at is our big questions that I'm hoping you'll be confident enough to answer by the end of this session. So, why do scientists sample ecosystems? What is a quadrat? What is a transect? And why do scientists repeat investigations? And this is something we have touched on in the past, um, but it's definitely well worth looking at on a regular basis. So, my first question for you is in reality, well, why can't we count everything? I mean, you could if you really wanted to, and I suppose there would be a way of, for example, marking each and every blade of grass where you could then, with a eco-friendly thing that's not going to damage the environment in any way, and work your way across a field. Um, but that would take a huge amount of time. And if you were, for example, stood in the middle of a forest, you would want to know how many oak trees there are, how many ants live here, how many daisies grow. So there is the possibility to do it, but you would most likely go wrong somewhere. And you then go, oh, I need to start all over again. And with that, when we start to think from the ecology point of view, well, some organisms are tiny, some are hidden underground, some are flying, some are moving constantly, spread across huge areas. Therefore, we use something called sampling. Okay. And sampling is really important because what sampling actually means is the studying a small part of an area to estimate the whole area. Um, so, for example, if you were tasting a pot of soup, you don't drink the whole saucepan to decide whether it tastes nice. You would take a spoonful out without double dipping. I'm making that adamantly clear. And with this, you're sampling the entire soup. And obviously, if it's not seasoned the way you would like it, you would then alter the seasoning accordingly. So, this is what we'd be looking at. This is what sampling actually is. Pardon me. So, I'm going to give you a multi-choice question now. And with that, I'm hoping, after what I've just explained, you'd be able to answer it. So, as always, in the comments, please do give me your answer. So, my question is for you is what is sampling? Is it counting every organism, studying a small part to estimate the whole thing, guessing, or measuring temperature? And if you're rewatching this, do pause accordingly um, to uh, help. have a bit more of a think if you need to. Because the actual answer is studying a small part to estimate the whole area. And again, we only need to estimate, and oh, with estimation, we are able to then kind of start understanding that it is only an estimate. We can only ever, um, in reality, estimate how much of something is living in a given area. So, if I then asked you the next question, what makes good sampling? Okay, what makes good sampling? So, not every sample is reliable. So imagine you know how many flowers grow in a field. If you only looked next to the gate, would that represent the whole field? And again, probably not. Maybe people walk there at all times. Maybe flowers have been trampled on, or people have picked the flowers. So your sample could be what we call biased. And if you don't know what biased means, it is as following. Um, a biased sample does not fairly represent the whole area. Scientists try to avoid bias by choosing locations fairly. And when we then think about, well, how would we choose an area fairly? Because you might go, oh, I like that bit over there, or oh, I like that bit over there. Oh, that area is a bit dead looking. Well, I won't use that area. And the way we prevent bias is through a technique called random sampling. So random sampling happens. So every location has an equal chance of being chosen. If you think about it as the lottery, everyone's entered into the lottery. Someone's picked at random, um, to some degree. And so we would use a random number generator. So the balls bouncing around in a lottery machine, they're picked at random. And like I said, that then means the person that's picked them numbers particularly have then won the lottery. Um, so we would give a large field area um, a specific grid reference. Okay, and let's get an image of this. Let me let me get a image that will, and we do this in a whole range of different ways. Um I'm trying to find a really nice one that looks like it will work well for what oh, I know what we'll do. There we are. So, like, if we were looking at the city of Plymouth, and we were looking at the a map, um, you could, for example, say a church is located in 4854. So we would look at 48 and we'd look at 54 and we'd say, yeah, there is or 53, I think that's meant to be. Yeah, there's definitely a church located here. We can see the different things. And that's a delegated bit of work. And if we were to look at a quadrat reference, which we'll come to in a minute, um, when we look at this kind of thing and the random sampling, well, rather than counting the entire field or looking at the entire map, we could sample, um, for example, this map. So I would say, well, picking at random, um, it could be that the generators put it here, and it's like, oh yeah, there is a single church. Okay, where's the next generator? The generators put me down here. Well, there's no church. Okay, the next generators put me over here, and there's two churches. So I would say, okay, well, I've taken a sample of three locations. I've had two, one, and zero. With that, the average is one. So across this gridded area, I could then say from my sampling, the average amount of churches across this area is one. Um, and obviously, we could pick and choose a whole range of different structures and things like that. It was just whoever made this image originally, um, that's what they had chosen. So it varies. So why then, if we are doing random sampling, why is it so important? Well, again, imagine counting every single flower. If you choose only the prettiest areas, your results again would be biased and suggest that there's more flowers in the field than there actually is. So random sampling removes personal choice, and this helps produce what we call a fair scientific investigation. Now, I've already mentioned this word, and basically, um, what we use for this sampling um, is something called a quadrat. Now, a quadrat itself um, looks like this. They're generally nowadays or more modern. They're made out of a metal frame, but I mean, they could literally be a wooden edge with string going across. And they're typically about, or they could vary in size. So they typically um, come as a range. It's a frame of some kind, okay? And you're placing it across the area. And even here, I've mentioned that sometimes, depending on your budget, you could have a little bit of plastic pipe with some string going across. And in general, they're about a meter large. I know I said about half a meter, but I've now just suddenly thought, actually, no, it is a meter wide. Um, Looking back at my notes and things like that. So when it comes to a quadrat, well, this is what we place down. So with it being a meter by a meter, okay, we study and count the number of organisms in this given grid. So let's say you've got your large field, and what I'm going to do, right, let me, uh, bear with me a second. Ooh, this field would be a great image. All right. Okay. Let's say we're at Central Park in Plymouth. Okay. If we looked at this area in particular, we've got woodlands, we've got a um like stone area, we've got the play area, We've got around the cafe. We've got a bit of a car park. We've got roads. And we have got like grassed areas as well. We've got a field over here. It's a bit of a golf course, I believe. Now, if we were um, to just sample this area, we've got quite a wide range of areas. And again, this is where someone might go, if I said to you, "Oh, go place this quadrat somewhere," I might want to place it in the wooded area. You might go, "Oh, I'll place it in the park area because I'll have a go on the swings or something like that whilst you're there." Someone else might go, "Oh, I'll put it over at the golf bit and play a bit of golf whilst I'm going." So by making it completely random, um, we would grid out this entire area. So by us gridding out the area, we would divide it up accordingly and say, okay, let's do this. And we've got an area that is X meters wide that we need to investigate. And um, with that, we'll first of all um, make it so that um, we are covering the entire. I just want to point out that was very neat drawing on my part. Um, I don't think I could make it that much neater. Um, so we grid it, and we could then, give each of these grids sections a different number. So, one, two, three, four, all the way on beyond. Five, six, seven, eight, nine, and continue from there, kind of thing. So this would be 10 and so on. I really want to sit here and do it. And then we would use a number generator. So if, for example, we had a team of 10 people, I could then give each person a random number selected by a random number generator. And with that, then I'd say, right, you're going to this area. And so when you've then got your quadrat, well, what you would then do is you would go to your section, and with going to your section, um, you would place the quadrat randomly in that area as well. And you would count every organism that is in that particular area. So you would count, for example, the grass, the flowers, the moss. Is there different types of moss? Because obviously there would be different species of things, different species of grass. Um, is there lichen on the trees? Is there a tree in your area? And you would continue to go. And we would then run something called repeats. Okay. And by us running repeats, um, one of your quadrats, and so in the area that you'd be looking at, and this would be like a given, let's say it's 10 meters by 10 meters, or 50 meters by 50 meters. This is obviously quite a large area that I'm pointing out here. Um, but you could then actually complete a load of repeats, and by calculating repeats, so one single person would, for example, randomly, let's say this was the area that they um, were given, so they could place the quad. Give a different color. They would place the quadrat here, for example, and sample that. They might place it here because it's random. It might be here and here. So by me scouting the full area, um, we would then start to gain that randomness. And we'd be able to start to also identify different things. Now, the other thing that we could also argue is, well, obviously we've got different habitats here. So it might be that actually, as you can see here, this area's gridded up kind of thing. It could be that the area where the Winter Wonderland normally goes, we treat as one area, and we actually um, get a random sampling from this area, or we could get a random sampling from the skate park, or we could get do random sampling of the side of the bank kind of thing. So we could say, well, that's one area. And then, well, this is a different area that we're going to random sample. And like I said, we actually will random sample this area as well. And well, this area is wooded, so that's got to be treated in a different way. Um, and I need to choose a different color. The play area again is a different thing because over this little area here, well, that's a wa outdoor water area. So the question then is well, are plants going to be thriving better or worse? And again, this is where, you know, by us being random, we could start to work out all these things. So we could grid up all of this area, for example, and say, right, well, the side of this hill is all gonna be um, X numbered, and I could be like, okay, well, that's number one, that's number two, that's number three, and all the way around, and randomly give my 10 people sections of the hill, then randomly give people the Winter Wonderland, the thing. And so we could narrow our searches, and then we could say, well, the woodlands next to this has had. And by, for example, having um 10 people do this wooded area, getting given a random grid, and then them randomly placing the quadrat in that given space, well, then again, our data has far more repeats, far more accuracy in regards to increasing the level of um, quality that our data is likely to be. So, what would then happen is our person that is doing all of this, well, they might actually go, well, I placed the quadrat 4 times. In the first area, there was 8 daisies. In the second, there was two. In the third, there was 12. And in the fourth, there was six. Okay, so we would add all of them numbers together and divide by the number of repeats that we did. So in this situation, we would say, well, we would have on average 9 daisies per quadrat. Um, Let me just very quickly go to my website a minute, because on my website, I actually, I swear I put a, bear with me a minute. I think I drew a image of a quadrat with a load of flowers on it. Ah, there it is. Here we go. So it would look, the quadrat would look something like this. And here's one I drew earlier, which I'm quite impressed with. I did over and under with the metal rods and stuff like that. It took a little while, but I'm very pleased with it. So, you would have randomly placed this quadrat in this area of the map. And so imagine like putting it here, and then, no, not gonna, let me, this is where sometimes it doesn't quite work the way I want it to go. But you get what I'm saying, I'm hoping, in regards to the randomness of our placing of our quadrat. Okay. And where we would then go next is, well, we would um have to also think to ourselves about the different organisms as well. So if I asked you this multi-choice, okay, which organism would be best studied using a quadrat? Wood, foxes, bees, grass, and sparrows. Out of them four, again, if you are rewatching this, pause now. But in reality, using a quadrat, um, you would be counting the grass. Okay. Um, and this is where, again, I mean, what we could also start to look at, for example, is if there was any feces here. So actually, a fox walked through this area because there's a little bit of uh, fox poo there, or there's some squirrel poo, or a number of other different things. So we could potentially then go as far as saying, well, even though the quadrat can't be used and we can't like pin a fox down with it and go, oh, there's a fox in this area, we might have seen that it's traveled through the area, which again is very important. So, what we could then look at is something called a transect. Okay, so a transect is so how does an environmental change across an area? All right. Now, what we would do here is we get a transect, which is basically a long tape. Hold on a minute, just turn my alarm off. It's telling me to have a drink. We have a long tape stretched across an area, and it'll be a given amount of, it'll be like 20 meters long. So if you picture, um, bear with me a minute. So let's say I put a transect along this path here, along this arrow. All right, so here's my transect coming across here. And basically, if you imagine then walking from here, so we're going from a bit of a pathed area into a wooded area, into a like concrete play area, then we're going across a more of a playground, and then we're going into a small like grass wooded area again. Well, a transect helps us um, measure these changes and recognize how this actually changes across a given area. So rather than you random sampling across and going, well, this is what I believe should be happening, um, the transect actually shows us a continuous record along. And again, you would get your quadrat, and the transect distance would be divided up into sections, and you would place your quadrat along it accordingly. And if you, I mean, if you pictured it this way, um, and you were talking about like a beach, sand dunes, and grassland, um, you might have the transect going through all three sections, and you're looking at well, how much plant life grows. Well, again, you're going to have very limited amount of grass here. You might have some grass sticking out in the dunes, and then the grassland is going to obviously have a lot more grass. So it's recording everything along the line, and we can also do random selection along it as well. So by us recording every meter as well, or every 5 meters, so placing the quadrat along it to help count, um, we can now identify patterns in that as well. And there's different types of transects as well that you can use. You could do continuous transect, like we said, recording everything along the line, or interrupted, where you're doing everything every 5 meters. And this is what each type would be. It's that giving the names to what we just said here. Okay, which I've realized I've just written twice. Um, so where are transects used? Well, again, it might be that we're testing along a coastline. And one of the things that bear with me a minute. Um, so for example, um, here, for example, um, you might want to do a transect of this area. Okay, and this has got obviously when the tide goes out, it would be a bit further away. But by doing a transect along this beach with the coastal defenses, so what these are designed is to prevent the waves coming in as heavily. It kind of helps break them up so that they're not able to cause as much kind of damage along here. And it makes it so that then people were able to swim here without it being too intense for them. Um, and they can then section it as well. So this section could be swimmers, this could be paddle boarders, surfboarders, etc. as well as they're going along. But we could transect along this, and we would then be able to like count the populations of species getting closer to the barrier and getting further away from the barrier. Or we could do the transect, for example, going like this across the area. So actually, we're on the beach nearer the fence, so moving away from the fence, going up the concrete over the edge and towards this field over to this road, for example, and we could test samples. Um, we could also potentially use a transect for measuring, which I've only just thought of. I wonder if anyone has done this, using a transect and a quadrat for counting the amount of um, rubbish and plastics on the area. So you could then say, well, we're noticing that, for example, the plastics are accumulating heavily against the sea defenses and stuff. So the reason we're talking about this, we're talking about reliability, accuracy, and repetition or repeatability. In the science world, we don't just kind of turn around to every other scientist and go, I've discovered this. And everyone goes, okay, we all believe you. Um, to make data trustworthy, someone else should be able to come to the exact location you've tested or do the exact experiment you've done and get the same results or as close to possible the same results. And with that, by you doing this kind of thing, and we would, start to produce more and more reliable results, more and more um, results that are consistent. And this is what is happening across the world. Whenever we're doing any kind of science, we need to make sure what we're doing um, is reliable. We need to make sure it's accurate. So its accuracy is as true to what we're saying is as possible. And again, it's that repeatability. We want other scientists to be able to do the exact same thing we've done so that what we're saying is fact becomes fact. Okay. And by us doing our random sampling and repeats and all of that, and then getting um, people to copy it as well, we start creating what we call sources of error as well. So scientists have to think about what could have affect their results. They have to start thinking about miscounting organisms, uh, coordinate rats not being placed randomly. Did different people identify species differently? Were the weather conditions different? And again, I could um, do a quadrat reading right now in summer, and my peers might be only able to go look at it in winter or autumn. And would the species that I counted all be there and available? So when we're looking at ecologists and what they use these methods for, they use this for monitoring endangered plants and animals. They use it for studying insect population, measuring biodiversity, assessing habitat health. By having a greater level of biodiversity, it means that the habitat is much healthier. And we can then also use it for tracking the effect of climate change and, like I said, investigating pollution. So the data collects helps governments make decisions about conservation and land management as well. So if you think about doing a ecology survey, well, you could look at going just here in Plymouth. You could go Central Park, you could go Plymouth Hoe, you could go Devonport Park, you could go to any of the woodlands in the area, you could go to local beaches, you could go to school playfields as well. Um, and with all of this, these are the kind of, you know, ideas that you could grow on. Now, if this has sounded interesting to you, you could go down the route of becoming a field ecologist. And a field ecologist spends much of their time outdoors. So if you're an outdoors kind of person, I'd highly recommend this as a career. As a qualification, you would need your GCSE science, then go on to A-level biology or geography, or do both. I mean, you generally do three A levels at the same time, so doing both side by side would be good for you. And I'd highly recommend doing GCSE biology as well. Then doing a degree in ecology, biology, or environmental science. And that would take you on to a starting salary of around 25,000. And as you become more experienced, you would go to 40 to 50,000 as well. Now, as a little practical for you to do, I'd highly recommend this, and this is definitely something you can easily achieve. If you get 4 sticks or 4 meter rulers, whatever you're wanting to use, or whatever you've got available, you can create a square approximately 50 centimeters by 50 or 1 by 1, and you can then place it randomly on your lawn, garden, or the park that's near you, and you can actually then have a practice at um, doing your quadrat. And what I would absolutely love is if you can get a photo of the quadrat you have made, so that we can get this on our social media as well. And what I would add as a challenge is which location had the greatest biodiversity, which had the least, and could you explain why? Now, for you lot as well, what I would like to give you as some extra work before you leave is a couple of questions that you should now be able to answer using this. What is sampling? Why can't scientists count every organism? What is a quadrat used for? And what is a transect? Now, if you're wanting some more difficult questions, I do have these three as well, with a couple of command words in it as well. And remember, if you aren't sure, you should be able to explain why random sampling is important for 4 marks. So sorry, key things. Remember, explain as a command word is a why. That's why I've put the why there. So explain why scientists repeat sample investigation as well for 4 marks. And then for another question, describe. So what? That's what the describe command word wants. Two possible sources of error during ecological sampling and explain how they could affect results. Um, Now, at the very end of this video, I um, we are at the end of our video. I want to say thank you today for joining us. Here are your keywords for today. Sampling, quadrat, transect, random sampling, population, habitat, reliability, accuracy, repeatability, and bias. A couple of other bits, real world links. Like I said before, we have wildlife surveys, conservation projects, national parks, environmental monitoring, construction planning, and climate change research. Next week, we will be looking at in more detail competition in ecosystems, why organisms compete for resources, limited factors, carrying capacity as well, predator prey population cycles, and what happens when resources begin to run out. Now, as always, I also like to give you three or a couple of curiosity questions. I'm giving you four today because I feel like it's one of them kind of days. And how do scientists estimate the number of fish in the ocean? Why might the same field have different numbers of flowers in spring and autumn? Could a drone replace a quad rat? What would happen if every scientist sampled a habitat differently? And what I now want to also say is, again, thank you for watching today. Please like, comment, and follow, and I'll see you all